Okay, we're
Hello,
in.
everybody.
Hello. Okay, so as people, well, Bonnie, I'm gonna let you. I feel like this is your favorite part of like
Yes, I
starting
always
everybody
love
off.
asking the questions to, wake up wherever we are. Maybe you're ending your day, depending. But tell us, where is everyone tuning in from? We're always curious and we'll always see all the different places, but let us know in the chat. Okay, Atlanta is the first one. I've been to Atlanta. I love it. Denver.
Oh,
Oh,
I think of Coke, the Coke
oh
music, or
yes. I've
yeah,
been
you were
to
telling me
the
about all the
music.
different Coke.
Oh, we got a few Atlantas in there.
Oh, we
London.
have a
Okay.
London.
Everyone's tuning in for Corina. Amazing. Guatemala. Hello. Oh my gosh, I love all of this. I'm not sure if anyone who is in the US or wherever you are is experiencing the heat wave that is happening, but we're here in Lincoln and it was like 106 degrees yesterday.
Whoa.
I'm gonna go to Canada, somewhere nice and hopefully cooler, but yeah, it's
Yes.
so hot.
Oh man. And Karina, where are you located again?
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what's the weather like there?
Hot, hot and
Okay, so hot
dry.
everywhere.
Yeah, about 100 degrees all
Uh,
this week. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, and Western Australia, it's freezing. I forgot it's winter. That's where you go. That's where you
that's
go,
where we
buddy.
need to go,
Okay.
everyone.
That is awesome. Well, it's so cool to see everybody from all over because we were talking before this that we don't typically do, well, it's 10 a.m. Central for us right now. And for Karina, even earlier than that. And so we were like, oh, this is kind of a cool time that we might get some of you that don't typically can join us because, the time works. So super cool. But oh my gosh, really quick, Vegas 112. Woo. Oh
Oh
man,
gosh. Hopefully
brutal.
everyone has a pool
I
or a
know.
pool nearby.
Well, hopefully we all stay cooled off as we discuss groups all day, which is so exciting. And with that, shall we kick this off, ladies? Shall we do this?
Let's do
It
it.
is so exciting because again, I was telling them before we got, I was like, I feel like we've been talking about this. Like, I've been working with Karina on this for a while now. And so it's so exciting to finally have this day has arrived and it's going to be incredible. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so excited. But before I introduce Karina and let her take it away with our first webinar of today, I do just want to quickly share what we're doing today, like what this is. I think this is our third year doing it's for sure second, maybe third. The time is just flying. I can't remember. Where we just wanted to do like a mini virtual event all about groups because groups have been getting huge. They already were, but we really saw, uptick in a lot of newer advisors coming in wanting to do groups or advisors who've been in the industry for a while and wanting to do groups or how to be better at groups, all of that good stuff. So we thought, why not spend a day talking about groups? Now, we have this kind of an interesting way. So the first two sessions today, so like the one you'll see today right now, is going to be more just industry education. So I want to make that clear that we're not really going to focus on Travefy at the first part of today. The first two sessions, which includes this one right now, getting started with groups, and then the second one, which will have a panel talk about group planning. Those two are going to be industry related. So that's going to be more about just your business. How do you get into groups? What does it mean to be a group? All of that kind of stuff. But then the second part of today, Bonnie is going to really be, she's going to be busy lady today because the last two sessions of today are all going to be about Travefy. So we're going to show you everything you learn about how to do groups and implement it in your business, how to do them better. Then we'll show you how you can organize your group trips with Travefy's tools. And then the last webinar will show you how to market your group trips with Travefy as well. So there's a lot you can do in Travefy with groups. So we had to split it into two. We almost made them three, but we're like, okay, let's do two. So there's a lot that we'll talk about. So keep that in mind that in these first two sessions today, we won't be talking about Travefy specifically. It'll come into the conversation, but we won't be showing you how to use it until later. So really exciting. But then after this session, though, we will just have like an hour break and then we'll go with a panel. And actually, Karina will join us again with two other advisors as well. So it's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to that. So definitely make sure you register for all those sessions if you haven't yet. Another thing to note, though, is that these will be recorded. I already see some chats in here, or they will, because we understand 4 webinars in one day, you're busy. It's okay. We are recording all of these. They will be available on that registration page. So where you go to register, they'll be available there. But then later this week, we'll also send you an email with recapping everything with all the recordings. So you'll get those. So no worries if you have to not, if you're busy or you have a friend, colleague who can't join, it's totally fine. We'll record these for you. But now what I want to do is I want to introduce Corina Johnson, who is not only a Travefy user, but really like the big group trips guru. I've learned so much just picking her brain over just as we've been putting together this webinar, and just want to thank Corina again for spending time with us today to tell us about group travel. But to give you a formal introduction is Corina Johnson, who's owner and agent at All Points Travel in Utah. So Corina, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm going to let you share a little bit more about what we can expect during this presentation and all of that good stuff. So I know this is going to be fun. So I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thanks, Stephanie. I hope everyone can hear me okay. Thanks for having me. I stumbled into this in conversation with you about groups with things that were points that I thought were really important. I've owned my travel agency. We're in our 33rd year of business, and I have been booking groups almost that entire time, about 30 years worth of groups. So I've been doing groups since before there was internet, before there was email. I've seen all the things. I've been through all of the iterations of travel and group travel. I come to owning my travel agency from a background in hotel rooms management. So I think one of the reasons why I was comfortable jumping into groups when groups started asking me for trips decades ago was because I had been on the hotel side and helped manage groups, manage events, worked with the sales teams on the operations side of groups. So there are things that, in my mind, what I like to tell advisors when they ask me questions, if you friend me or follow me on Facebook, you will see that I do a lot of groups and a lot of group bookings. So I often have agency owners reaching out to me, asking me specific questions, and I'm more than happy to help anyone at any time, because booking groups is a whole different animal, in my opinion. It's a different beast. I like to tell people you have to think and speak group. It's a different language in the travel industry. So I understand we've got a lot of people, literally hundreds of people on the webinar right now. Some are going to have more experience than others with groups. But in the spirit of this event today, getting started with groups, let's kind of start at the beginning and first go over some terminology and understanding. So when you're talking to salespeople, when you're talking to clients, hopefully something about today's webinar is going to make you smarter in what you do when you present your information. So the first thing to understand is some of the terminology in the industry. Very simple, FIT versus group. So that's that first slide, Stephanie. There we go. Most of you, especially newer agents that are getting into the business, soon learn what is FIT. I often see in groups, people will ask, what's FIT? What's DMC? There's a lot of terminology to learn when you come to the travel industry. So FIT, historically, fun fact, way back in the day, FIT stood for Foreign Independent Traveler. It was specifically for international trips. Now it could be free independent traveler, future independent traveler, foreign independent traveler, whatever way you look at it. This essentially is the booking that's a one-off vacation type booking. In other words, not part of a group would be the basic definition. And then you have groups. You might find that clients come to you often and say, hey, do you book groups? We have 3 couples that want to travel together. We're 6 people. And you have to know, if you are a group, quote unquote, what that means in the industry to literally be designated as a group. you know, a group of 3 couples traveling together, in their mind, they're a group, sure. But do they actually, are they large enough to command being designated as a group in the industry? And you're going to have that conversation with clients all the time. So traditionally in travel, a group would be contracted, and a group would be 10 rooms or more. Almost all hotels that you talk to are going to want a threshold of a minimum of 10 rooms in order for them to talk to you about being a group, quote unquote. This has gotten more flexible over the past few years. Some have realized that there are small groups that travel together, and there are hotel brands, especially in your all-inclusive fun and sun type destinations or cruises, that will do small group contracts. And so you want to think of those typically as being a minimum of 5 rooms and 10 people or more. So in your mind, I guess, generally speaking, I'd like you to put, all right, if they're going to be 5 rooms or more, I might possibly be able to designate them as a group where they'll be looked at as a group. They'll be maybe earning concessions from their hotel or cruise line as a group. So we're going to work with those thresholds, you know, the 5 rooms or more to be a small group, the 10 rooms or more to be a typical larger group. Okay. Now, when we're thinking of groups, let's talk about the different types of groups that you are going to encounter. All right. Again, some terminology that I think is really important for you to use. If you are sitting in a workshop, or you are meeting with salespeople or a BDM from a supplier, they're going to use this terminology often. And it's important, I think, when you're talking with your clients, again, that you're smart about the types of groups that they might be. So the first type and term that you want to think of is affinity. Affinity is probably the largest segment of groups that we will be dealing with as leisure travel advisors. Think of affinity as any group of people that have a common purpose, a common goal, or a common interest. All right. So a large multi-generational family is an affinity group. Again, if they're 5 rooms or more, you can start to talk about them as being a group. A large group of friends. You know, if they have 5 couples, 5 or 6 couples traveling together, now we can talk about them being a group. Affinity groups, and we'll get into this in the panel session in the next webinar, but a really important thing I want everybody to leave today is thinking of where in your local community could you find affinity groups. These are, it could be an organization, it could be a club, a senior center that has travelers that want to go together. This is where agents are very successful if they work with a local golf club, a dive shop, a bridal shop to get destination wedding referrals. Destination weddings themselves are an affinity group. Think of this as leisure travelers, people taking their vacation time. These have individual payers, all right? So the individual people in an affinity group will typically book with you on their own, pay with you on their own. But they are traveling together for a common cause or interest. A culinary group, a theater group, a book club group, I could go on all day naming the types of groups you could get that would fall under this. But you have to think of affinity group as being a leisure-oriented segment versus corporate. All right, so the next type of common group would be MICE. I know that that's a new term for a lot of people. You'll hear BDMs and hotel sales managers throw that around a lot, cruise line reps. MICE stands for meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions. It's one of the original segments of what made a group were corporate trips. These are almost the exact opposite of an affinity group in terms of how you have to think of them, how you're going to book them. These will typically have one payer. You are working with a company. In our world, layman's terms for travel advisors, you might get asked for a corporate incentive. or a corporate retreat, like an executive retreat. Those would be the common ones for us that would fall under MICE. I think as just individual travel advisors, we're not often planning an entire convention or a large convention center type event. You can grow into that, and those are a lot of fun, but typically it'll be the corporate incentive or a corporate retreat. But you'll have one contact with the company, they'll have one budget. It's important that everybody have the same room category. You have one payer. They may have additional events that they're wanting to book as part of the trip. The individual travelers don't really have a say over their individual trip in these cases, because they're along for the ride because the company is taking them on a corporate incentive. If that makes, hopefully that makes sense. Student travel. Student travel would technically be considered affinity, maybe. I keep it in a category all by itself because honestly, it's its own little animal in terms of how to book it. I do a lot of student travel. So if anybody gets asked and wants some help or suggestions along the way, you can always reach out to me. The big thing about student travel is you're not always going to have an adult in every room. You may have one payer because they'll run their payments through the school or the school district. You have, often if it's a school sanctioned trip, they will have rules and guidelines on how you can propose it, how you can bill it, who you bill it to, what the maximum budget per student is, insurance requirements. There's all kinds of things that go into student travel. It can be a really good segment to get into. Any of the group segments can be good to get into. They're just a little bit different in how you approach, how you book them. The last type of group that has become more and more popular in the last few years is the speculative group. That's the term, that's the industry term that's used with a lot of hotels and cruise lines. Essentially what that means is you as an advisor are going to hold some space, but you don't really have a group yet. It's speculative. You are speculating that you are going to fill that space. So this is like a typical come along with me trip, or what like a Pied Piper trip, where you hold some space and then you go promote it and you hope you fill your space. These are by far the hardest to fill. As a matter of fact, I just launched one for next year. I do a lot of small groups. I've already traveled with my first small group this year. I have another small group I'm taking in September, and I have 2 already announced for next year. And the one that's going to Ireland and Scotland, I'm not 100% sure I'm going to get enough space. And I have a lot of people who follow me for groups. You know, I don't typically suggest or like to just announce group space and then put it out in the world and hope that people register. Almost always what I would suggest, if you're going to consider a come along with me trip, is have a core group of people already in place. You threw it out there to some clients or some friends. You've got 2 or 3 or 4 on board who say, if you go, we'll go. So you already know you've got this little core group, and then you just build from there. That's the best way, I think, to do a speculative. But a speculative group would, again, generally fall under that affinity category, in the sense that everybody's a leisure traveler. They're going to pay on their own. They're going to contact you on their own. They will have their own sensibilities of how they want their trip to run during that trip. All right, so those are some of the types of groups. Now let's talk about, once you get contacted for a group, the ways you're going to book them. There's really 2. Well, 3, I guess. You could just treat them all as individual FIT bookings and just tell people, tell your friends to call me and I'll just get them booked. And then you just know you're coordinating them together. But if they truly are going to reach, say, that minimum 5 room or cabin, cruises are a little different. Some are 8 rooms, some are 6, some are 5. So just go out to your cruise line and see what specific small group contracts they have for you. But once you decide that they are going to reach the level to be a group, then you as the advisor have to decide how the best way is not only for the group to be booked, but for you to be able to manage them as a group. So the first type of booking that you can do, which I think may be where a lot of you may have dabbled in groups already, is your flexible group codes. Most of your preferred wholesalers or tour operators, using those terms interchangeably in this scenario, will offer a group code that you can apply to bookings for people to, and it does a couple of things. It links them together as a group, and it may give some added perks depending on the hotel property you're using, and it may give every booking a small discount. But it is a way for you to say, yep, have all your friends or family call me, I got you, we're gonna get you linked as a group, everybody will get a little discount based on the total that they sell. But the total that they book on their booking total will determine how much discount they get. As far as I'm aware, most of the wholesalers have a program like this. I can specifically speak to the ALG brands and Delta Vacations because that's who my agency uses primarily. Delta Vacations is our #1 wholesaler. FunJet Vacations is our #2. They both have very good flexible, what I would call flexible group programs. They have their little names for them, groupies, flex groups, every wholesaler has their name, but essentially what you're doing is getting a group code that would be applied to some individual bookings as they come in that are traveling together. The more traditional way to do groups is to contract them. This leads you down a whole rabbit hole of complication and opportunity. Contracts, again, are almost always restricted to a minimum of 10 rooms or more. Once you develop relationships with some hotels out there, they may work with you to fall short of 10 rooms a little bit, but still contract and treat them as a group. But in general, you need to consider that you've got 10 rooms or more traveling together. A contract is going to do a block of rooms at a given price over a given set of dates. And that has a lot of advantages and potential pitfalls, and we are going to talk about those next. So let's dive a little bit deeper into some of the advantages and disadvantages of both ways of booking. For flexible groups, what we were just discussing, the big advantages there are you're going to obtain a supplier group code, super easy to do. They issue it, you're done. There's no big terms to read or contract to read or anything like that. It gives the travelers with that group flexibility for the number of nights that they want to be gone, the room or cabin category that they pick, and different inclusions that they may want to pick. Again, if you get called, let's say, by the group leader, it's a big group of friends, or a destination wedding, and you're talking to the bride, of course, they think that everybody wants to be gone for 7 full nights. And they think that just that entry-level room category is going to be just fine. But in reality, when the individuals with the group start contacting you, they may want to have a shorter stay. They may want to have a longer stay. They may want to actually upgrade their room so they for sure have an ocean view or a preferred club. So they don't, when I would say more times than not, when we have flexible groups, which is constantly, if you looked at the picture of the group, not everybody's staying the same number of nights. Not everybody is in the same room category. So the nice thing about these flexible group codes is you book them what they want. You add their group code and it links them with the group and it gives them their group discount. And if there's any perks or inclusions that are coming along with that. The rooms are linked together as a group. They should be on the supplier side. So when they arrive to their transportation company or to their hotel or cruise line, those suppliers should know that those people are a specific group. It just makes them feel special. And it should give a little discount to each of the reservations or the added perks, whatever's in that specific small group code from that supplier. Now, there are some disadvantages to doing groups this way. The rooms are not blocked. So it's really, really important that you understand when you are telling the bride, this is how the destination wedding will go, or the group of friends, that you are quoting the first person this price right now today. It's really important that they understand that if someone else calls tomorrow or in a week or 2 weeks from now, that price can and will change. So they're going to be booking at the prevailing price of the day with that supplier. For example, back to Delta Vacations or FunJet Vacations, if you guys are familiar with those. You go to their platform, you book the room at the price and availability that it is that day. You just add the group code and it gives them a little bit of discount. So there is no guaranteed room availability. There is no guaranteed price, and the hotel may sell out. We have had this happen more than once to flexible groups. People wait. They wait a month, 2 months, 6 months to book for a wedding, and the hotel is sold out. The space is gone. So those are some pitfalls to flexible groups. However, I will say that I feel very, very comfortable doing contracted groups, and I do contracted groups all the time. They're sort of my little love and passion in my personal world of booking travel. The majority of groups that my agency does are flexible groups. I have an agent that specializes in destination weddings. She does about $500,000 a year in destination weddings. She will never look for a contract. Like, I think one time in 22 years, we've done a contracted group. There are agents out there who will differ from that, who book contracted groups for their destination weddings all the time. We're going to talk about the logistics of that. But when it's a leisure group with leisure travelers, a flexible group is going to make your life easier and give the most flexibility, again, for changing the number of nights, the room category, with or without air. You know, do they want preferred club or not preferred club? All of those things are much more possible with a flexible group code. So then next, the advantages and disadvantages of contracted groups. A contract, again, is a whole different side of travel booking. When you reach out to a sales department for a contract, they may or may not be working off of whatever the published rates are. You are not always going to get quoted a large block at whatever the lowest promotion is right now. So it's really important to understand that when you contract a rate, you are guaranteeing a block of rooms. They take them out of inventory and they are yours until you sell them. They are giving you a rate, hopefully that's very competitive. If it's not, I would look at a different hotel. But that contract is not subject to any promotions that might come up. So again, your leisure travelers tend to watch that. And you are going to be spending a lot of time explaining how they might not be getting the lowest price as it is today if they were to go out and book a one-off room over here at some special promotion, but they're part of the group, they're getting these added amenities, they get a guaranteed price, the group gets a guaranteed block of rooms. I mean, you're spending a lot of time explaining to them why you can't get them the lowest promotion that they see online today. So that becomes just something to think about when you're doing leisure groups with a contract. But you have the advantage that the room block is held. You know those rooms are out of inventory. The hotel is not going to sell out from under you. If you are booking a large group, 20, 30, 50 rooms, especially during a peak time, Easter holiday break, Christmas, New Year's, break, I would encourage them to do a contract, or it's very possible their hotel is going to sell out before they get all their people. You just have to be able to discuss with them that while you're going to guarantee a block of rooms for them, what that means for pricing and payment terms. The payment terms for contracted groups and cancellation will be different than your FIT bookings. So when you get a contract, it'll be pages and pages and pages long. You need to look at what the attrition schedule is. Attrition meaning if you reduce your room block, will there be a penalty? You need to look at all the future dates. Most contracts will have multiple dates that you need payments, and they will have multiple dates with a progressive cancellation. So you can reduce to this date with no penalty. After that, it's so much per room penalty. Then at a next future date, reduce again, it's so much more per room penalty, that kind of thing. It's a different payment and cancellation terms than you would have for most of your FITs. So you do have to put that in mind when you get that contract. But the pricing is guaranteed until what is called your cutoff date. That's your last date to give them your rooms, your rooming list with your names, and release any rooms that are holding. With contracted groups, you can sometimes get more added perks. Often hotel brands will offer some with small groups, but not always, those flexible groups we're talking about. But with contracted groups, most will have a structure where you're going to earn a free room once so many book. You'll earn a welcome cocktail party. You'll earn free events. You'll earn, there's things that you can earn based on the number of rooms that you book. So especially if your group wants to do events or activities at the hotel, a contract might give you some advantages to helping them earn some stuff for free, okay? Disadvantages, again, will be often you need one form of payment. Depending on the hotel brand, you may or may not be able to set up for individual payment when you have a hotel contract. There are some exceptions to this. One is cruising. Cruising, you can have a contract with your block, and then you would go in and book the individual rooms, individual pay. If you book your contract through a wholesaler, I like to do my contracted groups with FunJet Vacations because I love the VAX management tool for booking my groups. That is one way that once you get you have to satisfy the payments to the group as outlined in the contract. So you may have to have one entity be willing to put up that first initial room deposit. It's common to have something like $100 per room deposit at the time you sign the contract. So are the parents of the bride or a group of the friends who understand this, or you as a travel advisor willing to take the risk to pay the $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is to hold the number of rooms. After that, you could go in, if you're using a tool like the one that's available with ALG brands or the one that's available with Classic Vacations, I'm pretty certain theirs works similar. You would build in the individual room, grab a room out of your room block, and at that point, you can start to put the client's individual payment on that. But again, the amount that has to be paid and when another amount has to be paid has to be fulfilled on the contract. So you would need to really understand that and be able to tell your people it's not as easy as pay a deposit now, pay your final payment 30 days prior like normal. That you're going to pay something now, you're going to pay an additional 20% on this date, an additional 40% on this date, and a final payment that might be 60 days or 90 days in advance of travel. Because again, they're under a contract and those rules are more strict. almost always. Um, and again, the pricing isn't going to reflect any current promotions that might pop up. But doing a contracted group is certainly what you want to do when you have one payer, like a corporate incentive, like those MICE groups. I would always go into a MICE group with a room block, provided they're 10 rooms or more. Because then you know you have a guaranteed room category and you have a guaranteed price. You need to be able to tell that group, all right, I have all your travelers in the entry level Garden View Junior Suite at whatever all-inclusive resort. Because, excuse me, with a corporate group, it's important to them that everybody have equal room category. So they don't want some with ocean view, some with swim up, some with whatever happens to be when you get them booked. They want to know they have a guaranteed room block at a certain price. So a contract is definitely what you want to look at if you have one payer. If you sometimes, and God love you, if you have weddings that come to you that, you know, parents of the bride whip out their credit card and pay for the whole thing for everybody. I do know some have those types of weddings. Go for a contract and you've got one payer. It'll make your life a lot easier. But your typical leisure group, I'm going to suggest you stick with a flexible group program if it works for the dates. Okay, I guess let's go ahead and move on. Stephanie, do you think before we go into these other topics, we should stop if there's any specific questions that have popped up regarding those types of groups?
There definitely is. I don't know. I'm trying to think.
Or should we wait till the end?
I kind of wonder if it would probably be better to wait because some of the things you answered on too, as you were talking about, a lot of questions about just the payment stuff, like the contract, the legalness of everything.
Yeah.
So,
and that's something you and I have discussed, that once you get into contracted groups, especially if you want to take a net price, meaning it's not commissionable. And I will tell you that it is often, especially with domestic hotels, they will offer you a contract and it will not be commissionable. So then you have to say, all right, how do I mark this up? How do I collect payment for it? How do I give cancellation schedule to the guests so that if they start reducing out of your contract to the point where the group is penalized, you need to make sure that when individual rooms start reducing, that you have quoted a penalty schedule to them that will cover the penalties that essentially will be assessed by the group. Because at any given time with a contract, you're guaranteeing a certain percentage. Watch out for domestic contracts. You call up a typical Hilton, Sheraton, Marriott, Hyatt type hotel or any of their brands. It is very common for them to give you a contract. And from the moment you sign that contract, you are guaranteeing most of the time 90%. I talk them down to no more than 80%. And I really talk to them about having a future date where that kicks in, but they're not all willing to do that. And it depends on how much they work with groups and how savvy that group salesperson is that you're talking to. But it is very possible from the moment you sign that contract that you are guaranteeing a certain percentage of those rooms. So you have to ask yourself, do you already have registrations for them? Do you had you in that week grace period they gave you, did you go out there and get the rooms? You know you've got all these people, you've got their credit cards, you're ready to guarantee their rooms. Or are you just now starting to get the registrations for that group? And whoever the group leader is, I think more often than not, agents want to pass along that responsibility to them. You know, again, let's think of the destination wedding example. You've got the bride. Of course, she thinks she's going to have 100 rooms because don't they all? Isn't every single friend, family member, and coworker going to want to go to their destination wedding? And then how often, you know, you can plan on slashing that in half, right? But they're convinced they are going to have 100 rooms. Okay, so if you go out and get a contract for them and that contract wants $100 per room deposit when you sign the contract, is the family of the bride or groom or the bride and groom themselves willing to front that money up front while they go out and get all their people? But they need to understand, here is the penalty. You know, you are guaranteeing, or you pay a non-refundable $100 per room deposit. They reduce rooms later and they're losing that $100 per room. That is possible. There's a future date that they say, the contract might say, you owe an additional 20% of the full contract today, and any reduction after this date, you'll be, you know, below 10% of the room block, below 20% of the room block, below, you're going to start getting penalized, or it's going to be non-refundable if the block drops below those thresholds. So I know this is a lot and it's complicated. It is complicated. I work with contracts all the time. Me, as an owner of my agency, I sign those contracts and take responsibility for them. But I have spent a lot of years reading those contracts, and then I translate it into a proposal to my client. And each and every one of those reduction and penalty dates is there. And I increase it by a little bit, and I increase the dates by a little bit, so that what I'm telling the client will fully cover any penalties that might get incurred by the group. I mean, you know, on the actual contract side. I hope that makes sense. But if you are going to deal with contracts where you're getting a net price that's not commissionable to you, then the only way really that you're going to be able to deal with pricing is, one, you have the ability to mark it up and charge those clients in-house. My agency has a credit card merchant. We also have a business Venmo. We also do Zelle. I can bundle a group, customize a group. I can charge the clients in-house, pay out to the suppliers. There are some legalities that you have to consider with your errors and omissions and how you present the information to your clients. And this is where Travefy as a tool is really good. You have to disclose to them the actual supplier of each of the pieces, right? So this was something I was talking with Stephanie. If people want to get into these more complicated contracted groups, especially where you want to bundle things together and make a package, I am certainly happy to always help understand how that works. And it may be a whole other webinar, because there are a lot of details and logistics, and I can help from the how to price it, how to bundle it, how to make your payment terms, and how to present it to your clients and register them and get the information. But that's kind of that master degree level group booking. And we can certainly delve into that. We can probably, I'm guessing during the panel in the next hour, some of those questions might come up also. And I'm curious to hear how the other two handle groups like that. Is there anything else you think I should address right now before I do my last little bits?
No, I think that's, well, actually one question, so Samantha had asked, like, how far in advance do you contract your rooms for a large group, like 40 to 50 rooms, but is it usually always the same timeline you're looking at, or like when you're doing contracted groups, how early do you need to be?
Well, I like all travel, my canned answer is the earlier the better. I have corporate incentive groups that will contract immediately after the one for the next year. So like a full year out. The thing you'll find about your contracts is the payment dates are the same. Some of your all-inclusive resorts, some popular ones that are really good for large groups, their payment policies are crazy, like 180 days in advance they want. Okay, I am constantly trying to talk them down. I'm like, guys, you you got to give me till 90 days in advance at least, but you have some restrictions that will start to kick in about 180 days in advance. And if you are only booking your group, say 4 months in advance, then you're going to have that much more deposit that's due, that you're going to have sooner dates. I often get groups who've never done it before. They'll reach out to me in the fall and want to travel in January or February. Well, it is like a race because they're already in the eyes of the supplier within the timeline to be fully non-refundable and to need all their names. So they'll set, they'll contract you, but they'll be like, okay, in a week, you need to have 50% paid. And then in a week after that, you need to have all your names. So the sooner the better is the answer. I would go at least 6 months or more, especially if it's any kind of leisure group, a destination wedding, any kind of affinity group. The more time that you can give people to plan and budget, the more success you're going to have at filling that group. Because often, and I tell groups this a lot, if you wait, you might have friends and family that say, oh, darn, we would have gone with you to your wedding, but we already have our Hawaii trip planned for next summer. Think people are already planning their spring break, their next summer. So if somebody wants to plan an affinity group and get their friends and family and colleagues and club or whatever to come along, the more months you can give them in advance, the more they can plan their vacation time, plan their payments, budget for it, not have it conflict with other travel plans, etc.
Awesome. Oh, I think that's really helpful stuff too. I know there's a lot more questions coming in, but I'll let you keep going. And then if we have time, we can dig more in. But I think you're right. I think we're going to need to do like a webinar or podcast. So stay tuned, everybody. There's a lot we can dive into here.
Yeah. I don't want to talk too much about the whole custom groups and collecting in-house and that kind of thing, because I know so many advisors are not able to do that. If you're with a host, maybe the host doesn't allow you to collect and pay directly to the vendors. You may not be set up that way yet as an independent agency. So that subset of being actually to really customize a group and package it is kind of a separate group of advisors that we maybe need to talk about reaching directly. Okay, additional considerations just really quick that come into play when you're doing groups. Group Air. If you are working with one of those wholesaler tools, the really great thing there is when you book their room, you can bundle it with that wholesaler's contracted air. You're going to do it again on an individual basis as you book the room. If you have a large group, airlines require 10 passengers or more, and they have to fly. They have to fly. If they show up at the airport and one of the people last minute cancels and they only fly with 9, you are going to get billed back the difference between making those their group air and their published air. So you have to guarantee that there'll be at least 10 people flying. Several of the airlines will let you hold a group block with them and they will do your ticketing. So again, if you are not able to issue your own airline tickets, there are airlines you can work with where you can submit the group names and do the ticketing. Group Air almost always will require a deposit. They will hold the space for you without names until usually the typical would be a 30 or 45 days in advance for ticketing. There will almost always be what's called a utilization date. At 90 days prior. That's the date where you are going to guarantee a certain percentage of the seats are used. Same thing we talked about with hotel bookings. You are guaranteeing a certain percentage. So I usually give my group that 90-day cutoff is when they have to have their final payment to me and names. And that's when I'm going to issue their tickets, because that's the day that if you need to reduce your seats, that 90 days prior is when you're going to reduce your seats. Group Air can be tricky. It's not always a discount. Again, promotions are a one-off sale. They come and go online. People are like, well, I could fly there for $400, but you're telling me it's $550 for my group. Well, yeah, because when you ask an airline to block 40 seats, 50 seats, 60 seats on a plane, they're almost always not going to give you those at the very lowest promotional fare that might only be available for a handful of seats. So you have to, again, wrap your mind around how it works and be able to explain it to your clients. The advantage to Group Air is you have the seats blocked. They're at a set price. You don't have to buy them up front. All right. That's a complicated thing that could be its whole thing too. Stephanie, just make a note about that, booking Group Air. I made a note of a dedicated transportation or DMC. Even if you are using one of the wholesaler tools, like for example, if you're going to use the ALG brands, they work with Amstar, Delta Vacations in my case works with Traffic Tours. It's still a good idea to reach out to your DMC contacts. Let them know you've got these rooms, whether or not it's a contracted group or a flexible group, but they're traveling together, they're on the flight together. Give them an opportunity to maybe do a sign that is specific for the group at the airport. They'll often do that. You know, so-and-so's wedding, so-and-so family group. But you can work directly with that DMC in destination so that they know that those rooms, they'll often put them in private vehicles together. One thing that I would say if you're doing a corporate group, I would always, this is my rule, I work with the groups and incentives department at any of the DMCs. I take the transfers out of the wholesaler package and I contract them directly with my go-tos or Lomas Travel and Amstar in Mexico, because I want to know that that corporate event is treated like an event, that they have a sign, that they have private vehicles for any of their arrivals, that they have a hospitality desk at the hotel with a dedicated person. These are all things that those companies will do for contracted groups. The other thing that they will do, you'll usually be using your DMC for this, is consider any group tours that you might want to offer, even a family group or a friends group. Get a price for, if you know, a few tours that you would suggest. Let's use Cancun as the example. Maybe the half day to Tulum, or a day to Xel-Há, or a catamaran ride with a snorkel. Those are three really popular ones I use. I'll get a group price because it's nice if there's 10 people, 12 people, 15 people, that they can book it in advance, all go together. You know they're going to want to go together when they get there. So you might as well offer that. Say, hey, would you like a choice of some tours? Get a group price for that private vehicle for them, a pickup for 10 people at the hotel. Not everybody in the group has to opt into it, but it's something you're going to offer the group. I do this even for my corporate incentives. We will send out to all the travelers a choice of tours that they can opt in and pay on their own. And it's a great way to make some extra commission because those DMCs, at least in Mexico, the two I mentioned, will pay commission. And it's a nice way to service your groups and make them feel like they have an extra added offer from you and something organized as a group. The same would be to work with a hotel directly for any planned events. Even if they say, no, we're fine, you might need to give them some ideas of some fun things they might want to do, like plan a welcome or farewell cocktail party. Most of the hotels will have a activity staff will be glad to do a beach volleyball tournament or beach Olympics for them, or some kind of team building event. Or maybe they want to plan a dinner or a cooking class or a tequila tasting or something like that that you can do private for your group. Those hotels, especially Mexico, Caribbean, if we're thinking the typical fun and sun, even your hotel salespeople really anywhere in the world. I do groups all over the world, and they will love to help book a dinner, a prefix dinner, or a cooking demonstration, or a high tea in the afternoon in London, or something for your group. And again, these are value-added things that you can either ask to be included or offer to your group at a little charge, but they know that it's planned just for them. And again, makes them feel special. So those I had to gloss over really quickly. And I'm sorry, I know that we are coming up on our time. The biggest takeaway, I guess, that I'd love everybody to have is just to know that you've got to be able to think group and speak group. Understand the terminology and how treating a group of any size is different. What are those special considerations that need to be taken into consideration, even if they're just, again, that group of 5 couples that are friends? How can you talk to them and make them feel, what group tools are out there that you can use, and how can you make that group feel like a group and feel special? Groups are really, really profitable, and they are something that people cannot book themselves online. So even though they might have been to Mexico 5 times, now they want to go to Europe and they've got 10 people and they really don't know what to do. Or grandma wants to take the whole family on a cruise, and that's a little more difficult. So take advantage of those requests, not be intimidated by them, and just understand how they're treated differently in the industry than a bunch of individual bookings, which they're not.
Yeah. This is incredible. Wait, I'm going to stop sharing just really quick so we can expand our heads. Our faces are bigger. That was so awesome, Corina. And everybody's agreeing. They're like, we need a masterclass version, second one. I know, we do. This has been so helpful. A couple things though. I know we're coming up on time, but I do have a couple questions. More on like language stuff is, can you explain what a DMC is?
Yes, sorry. A DMC is a destination management company. Think of this as the local tour operators, if you will, that are basically the transportation companies. These are companies that do transfers and tours. DMCs have grown over the years, especially in Europe and other places around the world, to also book everything you need. They can book your hotels if you want. They can book experiences, but typically you're going to think of a DMC as your local representative. When your clients land in destination and they're greeted by that person at the airport and they get in that vehicle, that is now your DMC in charge of them. So working closely with them so they understand who your guests are. I even set up during travel with our big groups, I'll set up a WhatsApp we've got the guy at the airport, the guy at the hotel, the guy in the operations, the agents in charge. They're all like, okay, everybody just arrived and they're in the van and they're coming and everybody went golfing today and had a great time. We're in very close touch because you look at it as you're passing off the baby to the local representatives. So that's your destination management company.
Awesome. Thank you. And then another one is, can you explain what MICE means again? Or like the breakdown of each letter?
Yes. Meetings, incentives, conventions, and exhibitions. So think of MICE traditionally as being your big convention center type groups, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's what I was thinking about when the conferences we go to and how those are contracted hotels, and it started all clicking for me. And I was like, oh, I get it. So really cool. And 2 more questions for you. One, what is that, or where can they find you at again? Was there a Facebook group you mentioned?
No, I don't have well, you'll see me around in all the groups, but if you want, I have a professional Facebook profile. It's my name, Corina Johnson. When you get there, it says, this is my professional profile. It lists me at All Points Travel. You'll see my profile picture is me in an orange dress with my staff behind me. You are welcome to friend me there, message me there. It's all things travel. I'm friends with most of my supplier reps, a lot of agents, plus my clients. But I post a lot. I'm a very avid social media person, both Instagram and Facebook, and you'll see I've posted about recent groups that I'll be doing. They have Travify landing pages. If you go to my page, I don't know, it's a couple posts down, you'll see I have 2 trips for next year posted. You can see how I use Travify in there. You can check out those registrations. I have albums from groups, but feel free to friend me or message me there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool. And the other great thing is I know there's so many questions, and major apologies that we aren't going to be able to dive into them all. But here's the good news. After this, we actually have that panel, which Corina is going to be on. So this is really helpful to see what questions you're all asking, because we will probably cover those in this next one. So I'm really glad that you are able to join us again in there. I was also going to mention too that in our Facebook group, the Travify Facebook group, if you're not part of that yet, go join that, and we can keep the conversation going there. And not that, Corina, that will have you like answering questions, but I think there'll be
if you need me to.
no worries. Because I think what's great though is a lot of people, because the way we have our chat set up, people can't see. So I do think a lot of you have a lot of similar questions, and you might be able to help answer, and we can help guide you to places. And then the other thing I was going to mention is that yeah, there's a lot going. Today is groups day, everybody. It's going to be so cool. So much groups going on in there. But the other thing too is someone did ask about slides. I will make sure to put those slides once we get this recording on our YouTube page. I'll put the slides in like the the little notes section area of that YouTube. But so I'll put them there for you all. And then finally, the last thing I want to share, let me go back to sharing my screen here, is the next session coming up. So I already started talking about this, but literally this is so perfect that we have the panel, and Corina will be back in an hour. But come join us. Make sure you will have to register for that separate Zoom registration. So if you haven't, go back to the main registration page for this whole day's event, and you can register for this, and it'll start in 59 minutes pretty much in there. And then finally, also, again, I know that we're not talking about Travify quite yet, but if you're not a Travify user, go to Travify.com. You can start a free trial, and you can start dabbling in all the stuff that we're about to show you later. So it's going to be so fun.
Stephanie, can I just say one quick thing? And I know we're over time, I'm sorry, but I do want to say that I went on a mission to find an app a few years ago, specifically for managing my groups that I send. And I was using a different company for a couple of years, but I transitioned to Travify. But my number one reason for wanting a system like this was to manage groups. And Travify does have some very good, slick ways to manage your group itineraries. And so I would definitely hang on if you're not using them for groups to learn what Bonnie has to say later. And I can help you know what I do with my groups with Travify.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And what's cool too is that we've added so many more things over just the past year alone that really helps with groups, like the landing pages that you talked about and all that. So thank you. Swear we did not tell her to say that. So thank you. It's great. It's very helpful. And that's what we're here for. We want to provide you with to help you grow your business, in there. So with that being said, I can't wait. We are just getting started, everybody. So join us again in an hour. And thank you so much again, Corina. This is incredible. So, and we will see you again here very soon, which is very exciting. So thanks, everybody, and see you in just a bit.
See you in a while.
See ya.